Tropical storm Debby is starting to rapidly intensify. Now, a 65-mile-per-hour tropical storm expected to be a hurricane by tomorrow morning as it makes landfall right off the coast of Florida. You can see the convection really starting to blow up around the center, and the outer bands are just now coming ashore with very heavy rainfall. In fact, we've had several tornado warnings right along the coastal regions, and that's going to be a beginning threat of a tornado threat that will last throughout the day and into tomorrow morning, really most of the day for tomorrow, as tropical storm, which will be Hurricane Debby, starting to come ashore by then. So here is the latest update from the National Hurricane Center. You can see tropical storm warnings are essentially right along the coastal lines of the western areas of Florida. And yes, it is expected to now upgrade to a hurricane and come ashore as a hurricane. And the National Hurricane Center is forecasting a 90-mile-per-hour hurricane, even possibly stronger than what was Beryl, as it comes ashore just east of Tallahassee here. And as it does, it's going to produce very heavy rainfall, and inland tornadoes is always going to be a huge concern with this system. But it's more concerning later on down the line is the slow moving nature of Debby, and some concerns it may even start to really slow down as it approaches Savannah and possibly even reemerge back out into the Atlantic and possibly even stall. So there's definitely some uncertainty as we get into the middle of the week, but we are expecting significant, almost near historic flooding potential from Savannah to Charleston. So right now, the National Hurricane Center, the Weather Prediction Center, does in fact have that upgraded high risk of flash flooding, essentially from Savannah all the way through Charleston. So we do in fact expect heavy rain. So I think the outskirts are going to be Miami and more or less Panama City. If you live there, I'm not really sure you get much of anything from Debby, but inland, especially towards Tampa Bay, getting into Tallahassee, and as it slows down near Augusta, especially those areas into Savannah and Charleston, it'll be devastating. And if it actually comes back out into the open waters, it could strengthen significantly again. So be watching Debby every step of the way, especially as we go towards the middle of the week. But here is the latest estimates from the Weather Prediction Center. It's definitely concerning, folks. We've got heavy rain that will move ashore tomorrow morning. In fact, right now, but even intensify as we get to tomorrow morning. Some of these areas could pick up some double-digit totals in and around the Tallahassee region, but especially as it crosses into southeastern portions of Georgia and getting into the Carolinas. This is when it's expected to start to slow down, if not stall. And yes, that's not a misprint, folks. That is approaching 20 inches of rainfall right around the Savannah region. And I've even seen some isolated spots could approach even almost 30 inches. That only happens if it stalls out and goes back out into the open water. So that is definitely still on the table. We could be looking at possible historic flooding in some of these areas in and around Savannah through the Charleston region. But right now, we have to be concerned about inland tornadoes like we were concerned with Beryl as it came ashore. So we do have an elevated risk for tornadic activity, especially from the Naples region into Fort Myers, back into Sarasota, as well as into Tampa, Orlando, getting into Gainesville, all the way extending into portions of the Tallahassee region through Jacksonville and Daytona Beach. Definitely got to be on high alert. These are going to be little quick spin up tornadoes. Probably not have, little to no warning with these type of situations, unfortunately, as they come ashore. So we'll be seeing numerous likely tornado warnings really throughout the day, and especially into tomorrow. That tornado threat shifts closer to the Panhandle, where it is expected to make landfall somewhere in the vicinity eastward of the Tallahassee region. And as it does, it could spawn even more tornadoes pushing inland through the Jacksonville region and then eventually heading up through Savannah as we get into the southeastern portions of Georgia and then getting eventually into South Carolina. But before that, we've got a lot of water, higher sea surface temperatures to contend with. These are approaching, upper 80s, if not 90 degrees right along the coastal region. So yes, all indications Debbie's is going to be its strongest as it comes ashore. So it's still going to be rapidly intensifying all the way until it makes landfall. And the National Hurricane Center has been up in the ante with every update, and now expected to come in at 90 miles an hour. And some of the wind gusts are going to be very strong, folks. So right now, even the short range guidance is also hinting at significant high winds with the approach of Debby as it comes ashore. And some of these wind gusts could approach over 100 miles an hour, especially near the center there, into the panhandle of Florida, and then going into lighter wind gusts as we extend into southeastern portions of Georgia and getting into the Carolinas. But yes, flash flooding is going to be a huge concern. And again, some of these higher resolution guidance is printing out some concerning totals of 20 inches in some of those isolated spots, especially where it kind of stalls out. So we are expecting anywhere from likely 6 to 12 inches of heavy rainfall, especially on the eastern side of western side of Florida. And then as it comes ashore, it likely stalls out, or at least slows down as it approaches the Savannah region. Yes, that's where we could be looking at some devastating flooding. So further to the north, we are going to be watching a cool boundary. They're going to be trying to seek southward. That's going to spawn renewed thunderstorm activity and more heavy rain and some severe storms heading into tomorrow again for areas into Minnesota, Wisconsin, and back into the Michigan region. So definitely be on the lookout for that as we head into tomorrow. But further south, it's all going to be about the heat. So these areas further south and across the southern plains are going to be experiencing the hottest temperature so far they've seen this summer, while obviously the coastal regions, especially along the Carolinas, are dealing with the threat of Debby, and they're going to be baking across the southwest and much of the central plains. Here's the latest icon. Now, this is an outliner, but here's the latest icon, as we head into Tuesday. Again, more uncertainty as it comes ashore. This one actually lowers it down to a 983 millibar low pressure, likely possibly right along the coast, or if not, tries to get back out into the open waters. And again, this is an outliner, but the latest update from the icon guidance actually explodes it down to a major hurricane, a 954 major hurricane. This is definitely an outliner, but we're starting to see some indications where this could possibly reemerge back into the Atlantic. And if that does, obviously that will put the area of concern back out into the open waters and could lead to that isolated rapid intensification. So don't be off the hook and have this scenario, could still unfold, but especially we've got more, crucial uncertainty as we head into especially Wednesday and Thursday, just because of the slow moving nature is going to be trapped between a high pressure and a trough. It's not going to have money steering currents to work with. So yes, we could be looking at some devastating flooding or another intensifying low pressure forming into an re-emerging back out to the Atlantic and re-intensifying. So right now, if you look at all the guidance, you can see a lot of the uncertainty, all the guidance pushes it right here off the coast of the Carolinas. So, and kind of more or less slows it down, if not stalls it. So we could be looking at a slow moving nature system, either right on the coastal regions or right offshore, producing very heavy rainfall or having an intensifying storm again. And then it will slowly start drifting further north. We'll be dealing with the remnants of Debby for all week long as it hugs the east coast, and I don't think it really gets out of here by late Friday or even Saturday timeframe. So we got a whole week to contend with the impacts of what's to come with Debby, because the high pressure pretty much is locked and loaded over the southern plains, while the northern regions is experiencing another significant, fairly summertime cold front as the cooling temperatures will pull across the central plains again. And further south, you're going to be baking in the heat for Wednesday and Thursday. upcoming, and some of those could be some record high temperatures, and likely the hottest temperature so far this season, baking at 109 there in Amarillo, possibly 106 in the Dallas-Fort Worth region. So all these areas in the circled areas could pick up some record breaking temperatures, while further to the north, man, you're experiencing really pleasant light conditions in the 70s, widespread from Montana through the Dakotas, through Minnesota, all the way through the Great Lakes and into the Northeast. So we do have some cooler temperatures further north, but then you're going to be baking in the heat further south and contending with the Debby remnants off the East Coast. So again, more uncertainty as we go into Wednesday, if it's going to be stalling right there off the Carolinas or coming off the shore. But yes, we are going to be still dealing with some very heavy rain through the Carolinas, South Carolina, up the coastal lines of the east coast, and it just doesn't really go anywhere. This is Thursday, and then there's this Friday going into the late week, but we'll also have to be contending with another system, right? So as Debby comes ashore, of course, we are expecting a very active hurricane season. Yes, right now the National Hurricane Center has a 20% probability of another formidable wave that came off of Africa starting to get its act together across the Windward Islands, and these will be pushing westbound over the coming days, while most of the Debby's remnants will be coming off the East Coast. So as we'll be keeping a close eye on Debby, we'll be watching this activity getting into the Caribbean by the middle to the end of next week. And yes, by Friday, yes, that doesn't really go anywhere, folks. So all week long, we're going to be contending with the remnants or the storm activity still with Debby, as it continues to pump very heavy rain along the region, and it could extend as far north as Massachusetts, getting into Connecticut, and eventually the southern portions of even Maine could eventually start having some sort of impacts with this system. But going into the weekend, or at least next weekend, we'll be watching this much cooler air start to really build across the north and try to slowly build further south, and hopefully gets further south, especially for those areas that are going to be baking in the heat all week long, to have at least some sort of respite, some sort of quick relief on the way from the heat they're going to be dealing with pretty much all week long. So guys, I'll keep you informed with what's to come all week with Debby. So I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update while I protect you before and after the storm.